Hello and welcome. It is All for United once again. Dan's just having a look behind him just to make sure he can read, which is brilliant there. It says Foul Pro Podcast there, mate. Good job. As you can see, we've assembled another stellar panel so that we can start dissecting all the things that have happened over the last 7 days to do with Manchester United. And you're very welcome. So get yourself in your comments, get involved, and see what you've got to say. Who have we got with us? Well, obviously we've got Dan, because it's kind of his job now. He has to come and sit here and babysit me and make sure I don't say anything too ridiculous. But we do have two people down here who have no such limitations upon them. Stu, been a couple of weeks since we had you on, but welcome back. How are you, sir?
I am refreshed. Nice holiday, thank you. Really quite chilled. So looking forward to the show. I've got loads to say as per normal. So feel free to mute me as and when you think it may well be necessary.
Excellent. Well, we'll be getting on good with that. And friend of the show, long-time friend of the show, but we haven't seen him for quite a while. He's been sorting out all his bits and pieces, but he is back. Marcus, how are you, sir?
I'm pretty good, all things considered. Yeah, feel pretty rested today. Watched some of the football. It was actually good. So I'm happy to be here, man. Lots to talk about.
Excellent. There certainly is a lot to talk about, so we are definitely looking forward to doing that. Connor has arrived, and he's speaking on his own platform this time, which is a delight. So cheers for that, Connor. And hello, Jennifer. Lovely to see you as ever. So much to talk about. We're going to talk about literally, like I say, everything that's happened over the last 7 days. But the only place to start really is, in absence of a game, are the signings, I think, and where we sort of stand going into the next couple of months. We've got the Champions League coming up, the Carabao Cup. We're going to talk about that. Arsenal, obviously, tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about that. Before we do that, we've got to start thinking about these positions. And I want to start, gentlemen, at left back, because that was, without a shadow of a doubt, the one I think that had us the most worried to begin with. How do we feel about how that has turned out in the end? Because there was lots of clamour for Fernandes to be given a chance and to start. He didn't. Then we brought in Sergio Reguilon from Spurs on a season-long loan. And then we did get rid of Fernandes. So he has gone out to Granada on loan. How do we feel about the left-back situation, Dan? How do you feel about that? Because it still feels a bit uneasy with Luke Shaw obviously out for a bit as well, and Malacia. You worried at all?
A little bit, because if Dalot picks up an injury, we then just got Reguilon as our only left-back. So still a little bit of a worry. Personally, was a little bit disappointed we didn't give Fernandes a go. I think he sort of earned his stripes in an old-fashioned way. Went down to the Championship, played 42 games, player of the season. I don't think he could have done much more. And I would suggest if football had not moved on a little bit, he probably would have been given a chance. Try not to be too hypercritical of people, I suppose, because at the end of the day, if Ten Hag plays Fernandes and it goes to pot, he's going to get absolutely battered in the modern day. They'll call him a failure. They'll say that he's should have brought in someone with a bit more experience, etc. I suppose it's just the United way we used to, that he probably would have got a chance in the past. I personally think Reguilon's a half-decent signing. I think the club really should get a bit of credit, because they brought him in short notice. It's not cost a penny from the sound of it. It's covering wages, and there's a break in January if they want to take it. So left back in particular, I think they've acted quickly and pretty decent. There was links with Alonso, which I found less than impressive when we consider his past. I was hoping there'd be a bit more raw about possibly signing him than there was. And then Cucurella was another one. You're not going to pay the fee that Chelsea wanted. So personally, I'm glad we didn't. I think it was something like a 10 million fee and then to buy as well. So I think Reguilon's a really good short notice thingy. I personally would have loved to see Fernandes given a chance, but it is what it is, isn't it? Football's moved on a little bit. It's disappointing, but at the end of the day, it was results business. So we'll see if it goes well or not.
Definitely one of those tricky ones, isn't it, Marcus? I mean, we're in a situation, he's quite right when he says there, Dan, if Fernandes plays, Ten Hag's absolutely in trouble. But was there one of those where you think maybe Fernandes just stayed as well? Or do you think for his development, it's going to be better that he goes off to Granada?
I mean, I'm a big believer that young players in general shouldn't come into a squad that isn't, playing particularly well and isn't at the right sort of level. So I don't think many young players should have been given opportunities at United over recent years, because I've seen Elanga, seen many others come into this team, and they've been harshly criticized, and people have gone overboard with the criticism. And then you look at Elanga against Chelsea today, and he looks like a completely different player. So it's like, young players need to be brought into the right environment. And for Enzo Fernandez, I don't think this was the right environment. If the plan was always to start him anyways, regardless of the Shaw injury, then fair play. But you can't just pivot on a decision that will impact the player's development and say, oh, we've got a bunch of injuries now, so forget that loan, forget that long-term plan we had for you. You're in the team now. Take your chance. I personally don't believe in that. But, at the same time, I can see why people are upset with the Reguilon signing. I can see why people are calling for Fernandez to start, because, again, we've had this issue in the past where we've always scrambled in the last few days of the window to make a desperate signing, and it hasn't quite worked out. And there's a lot of PTSD with Man United fans. So I can see both sides of the coin. But for me personally, I'm happy that, Fernandez has been moved on and given a chance to develop properly. And then we brought someone in the short term to cover that position.
But yeah, I just wanted to quickly jump back in. I can see the point of view in terms of the young players, but if that was the case going back a few seasons, Marcus Rashford never would have got his shot when we was absolutely battered with injuries, and we had to put a forward up front, and Van Gaal played Rashford, and look how that's turned out. Sometimes you have to take these risks. You have to go. If he's good enough, he's old enough, which is, I think he'll do that with Kobe Minu this season. So I definitely think there's room there. It's just, and I've said this quite a few times in terms of Ten Hag. I think I've said it for about 6 months. I'm a little bit worried that he's got his 12 to 15 players, and there is 12 to 15 players, and he's not going to move from that until fatigue set in and we're struggling again, which, as well as we did last season, I think you can look back to the end of last season and see that players started dropping off quite a lot. Because he didn't trust certain players. And let's be honest, the players that he showed lack of trust to have not moved on, they've stayed. So he's got a choice to make in that he can either reintegrate these players in Maguire, McTominay, Donny, or he has to trust some youth players coming through that maybe says to those three, you need to leave in January. But he's got to pick one, because he can't just pick the same team between now and January and expect that the season's going to go as well as it could do. You've got to drop in a few changes here and there before the end of the season to get the best out of everybody.
It's definitely an interesting one. You're not wrong, and Marcus is right in what he says as well. If you're going to throw young people in there, they've got to have the mentality, they've got to have the ability, and there's a plan always in place for these youngsters, you would imagine. But equally, like I've just said, sometimes you just have to go for it, because what other options do you have? Which is quite a thing. Loads of you coming in on the comments so far, so thank you very much for doing so. It's brilliant to see you here, Lanzel. Wonderful indeed. Regular over on the Women's Channel, so great to see you here. I'd argue even Pilestri is ready, typical right winger. But more importantly, gang, look who's joined us from over in Florida. Big Johnny K has returned, so it's good to see him. Welcome to you. Stu, your thoughts, throwing that as well, the fact that Johnny Evans has obviously signed a short-term deal as well. Do you see him potentially featuring any way in that defence? Could we be in a situation where if the left back was struggling that much, good old Johnny with his experience could just nip in there on the left-hand side? We've seen it before.
So both lads have put up interesting points, and both of those points are accurate as usual. But there is always with me a third element that needs to be considered when it comes to Alvaro Fernandez, and that is the player himself and the player's wishes himself. Football is a revolving door. It always has been and always will be. And it could well be that Alvaro Fernandez has asked for game time. Ten Hag has said, well, look, I might be able to throw you in at the cups. We've got a gaping issue at the minute with left back. But there are certain games where I cannot consider you. And so maybe he's thought to himself and spoke to his family and friends and thought, well, look, maybe let's go back to Spain, or let's try and get another loan deal. Well, I need regular football. If he's got any aspirations of knocking on the Spanish door at some point, then he's going to start to need to play because he's 20 years old. So both elements for what the lads are saying are true, but there is always a third wheel, unfortunately. And that third wheel is player wish. With regards to where we are defensively, we have a bit of a kingpin in defence, and that is Leacher. Now, there are certain elements to Leacher's game that make him actually a better fullback than a centre half, and it's got fuck all to do with height before anyone asks and says, but his ability to snuff out the opposition, his ability to position himself in the right areas, and his overall reading of the game will allow him to be an accomplished left back if needed. So you asked about the Johnny Evans effect, you asked about the Harry Maguire effect, you asked about the Victor Lindelof effect. There are options, greater options at left back than the eye test, as everybody keeps babbling on about on Twitter, would always consider. And you've got to look at the player ability as an individual rather than, well, I can't move him out of centre half, or I can't move him out of right back, etc., etc., etc. And so I think we're well stocked in that area. And I think that's another reason where Ten Hag and Alvaro Fernandez himself might have looked and said, well, look, Martinez can play there. I mean, if it's ain't Reguilon, it's going to be Martinez. Or it certainly wouldn't be Johnny Evans, let's put it that way. But Johnny Evans may well fit into a centre-half position that allows Leach to play left back at some point. Bearing in mind, Leach has played central defensive midfielder as well. He's a hugely accomplished footballer. And if you said to him, I need you at left back today, yeah, whatever, boss, and off he goes. That's it. You don't get any questions from him. Yeah, no worries, boss. That's exactly, and that's where he plays, and he will give you that type of game. So, for me, I'm not too fussed about it. The Reguilon deal, I think it's a smart bit of business. I really do. He is more of a Ten Hag player than potentially Malacia and Luke Shaw. His attacking ability, his ability to be able to cross on with both feet from deep and from the byline is exceptional. Not that we cross the football when we do get in those areas, but I think you'll find that Reguilon will offer that. He was pivotal to Tottenham 12 months ago. He just doesn't, when we got turned over 6-1, he played. If you remember, he played in that game, and he had everybody had a good game, didn't they, for Spurs that day? It was just one of those. He will offer us balance because he's a naturally left-footed footballer, and that's what you're looking for in teams. You're looking for balance. It's just interesting to think that we have an issue in some position and the world collapses. The world doesn't collapse. Football continues and players continue. And if you're Reguilon, and one of the reasons Reguilon would have come is because he knows, and Ten Hag's probably told him, you're starting, mate, Sunday. He was already training before they announced his signing. He was in, he was up, he was, he had his medical, and he was out training with the lads. Same with the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper was up. They both turned up looking the part in suits. Their signing videos, which they were dressed up in suits, etc. They look very, very proud to stand and be Manchester United players. I've got absolutely no issues with Reguilon Sunday. He's played at the Emirates before. He knows what it's like playing in a Tottenham-London derby. Got no issues with him at all. And you've got to have Sunday in particular, and we'll talk about this in a bit. You cannot trust Dalot against a player like Saka, because he'll just have him for breakfast. He really will. So you need somebody who's going to have that ability. Where Reguilon will cause us issues, I don't think he's great defensively. I don't know what the lads think. I don't think he's brilliant defensively. Positionally, I don't think he's good. I don't think he's great in the tackle. Not going to win much in the air. But when we're going forward, he will be a great asset. His communication with Rashford will be pivotal as we go. The other signing about Reguilon, sorry to babble on about this, but it does give Luke Shaw greater time to get right. It gives Malacia greater time to get right. And when you're an injured footballer, you don't want to be. oh, come on, mate, you know, I've got 2-3 weeks back. I need you on the grass next week, lads. I'm desperate for you. You don't want that. You'll do it, but you don't want it, because that's where other niggles happen. Your hamstring is weaker, your calf is weaker, and things of that nature, and you're not mentally prepared. Reguilón stops all of that. He does. He's a left back. So again, the Cucurella deal was never going to happen in a million years. If they wanted 7 million for that, you know, piss off. We're not interested. And is Cucurella better than Reguilón? Yeah, you know, it's a question. I don't really know the answer. I'm not really sure Cucurella brings more than what Reguilón does. So I ain't got an issue with it at all. But I just thought I'd throw that third wheel in, fellas. As you know me, I can't just agree with you two. I've got a third opinion, but it is a valid opinion, because we always forget the players' wishes, don't we? We always talk about what club wants, or, you know, what's best for them. But what does the player want? So, sorry, I've gone around the houses, fellas.
No, it was good. Big Johnny K loved what you had to say there as well. So good stuff. Lots of positive stuff around Reguilón. So something we haven't heard much of since his signing. Which it's only been 24 hours, to be fair, John. But we'll see. We'll see how that evolves. Doesn't take much for United fans. I'm sure there'll be something out there soon. But I mean, you're quite right with that thing about the injury as well, though, Stu. There is that also sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes it's the player can want to get back a little bit too quick themselves, so desperate to get in. So
yeah.
Could be tricky, but a good point made there as well. Right, Dan, coming back to you then, Sofian Amrabat. And now, if there was a name on Twitter for Man United that I was probably getting a little bit bored of reading every time I scrolled through the Man United aggregated stuff and all of that, it was this. It was just consistent. We've got him now. Obviously, Mason Mount out for a little bit as well. How do you see Amrabat slotting in to our team?
I think it's one of them players that he's been after for a few seasons in terms of the type of player he is. We needed that tenacious person that can get across the middle of the park and keep it simple. And he's got that. Again, the deal, in my opinion, is a decent deal. It's a quite high loan fee. I think it is 10 million loan fee, and 10 million euros, and then up to 25 million to make the deal permanent. So I personally think it's a really good deal. I can't wait for him to start playing, to be honest. Him next to Casemiro should be a great partnership. Hopefully we can keep them fit for the majority of the season, and playing together for the majority of the season. And him coming in gives us so many more options as well in terms of the way we play. It also might allow him to jiggle the midfield a little bit and maybe rest Casemiro a bit more, so we don't need to be as reliant on him going forward, which is going to be important. You look at the better teams in the league, and they don't have to play the same 11 every week. They can rotate one or two players, and the quality's still there. The quality's still the same, which, as much as it doesn't seem to be the case when you look at Twitter, because of people's opinions of a McTominay or a Sancho or a Maguire, we're actually got quite a good, strong squad in depth-wise, as long as we can integrate them back into the team and use them when they need to be used. I genuinely, as John's just said there, his attitude is brilliant. He basically said, I want to join the club. He refused any other offer, and then he went down to deadline day, to which he's gone, this is the move I want, make it happen, even if it's loan to buy, which didn't look like it was going to happen at the start of the summer. They wanted like 35, 40 million for him. So he's been pivotal in wanting the move, and I've been banging the drum for a while. We need to move away from signing these players that come and say to us, come and pay 100 million for me and pay me 375k a week. We need these players that go, I don't care what you pay me. I don't care how I get there. I just want to put on the shirt. And he looks like, comes across as that kind of player. Let's hope he can recreate the form on the pitch that he's shown.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there, and lots to unpack from there. But before we do, I mean, Jennifer's just gone. I mean, it's like a 2-footed tackle, this one. No, needs to be careful or he's gone. I don't know if Jennifer's on the brandy or something tonight, but she's gone straight in there. So there we go. But that's her.
She makes a good follow-up point. If you read her follow-up point.
That's a very good point. Well said, Stuart. Obviously pops up on your screen just a bit before mine. But there we go. The Turkish goalie looks tasty as well. So, and he might well do. And we're going to get to him in just a moment. But Marcus, I am very interested. in your thoughts on the midfield. But let's take it down a slightly different avenue. What do you see now that we've got all of our players? What's the midfield for you? Which three would you suggest would probably be the starting midfield if all are fit?
For the Arsenal game?
No,
just in general.
Just in general, if
Yeah.
everyone was fit, what would you say is your...
Just in general, truthfully speaking, I don't know. Because our transition and our counter pressing has been really, really good since Mount's been in the team. I know a lot of people don't like the Mason Mount signing, and I understand their reasons for not liking the Mason Mount signing. But what I thought he was coming into this team to do is exactly what Ten Hag has brought him into this team to do. And it's backed up with the stats, but also if you just watch the game against Spurs, that first half an hour, our pressing was relentless. There were so many times where Mount, Casemiro, and Bruno, all three of them, won the ball high up, and then it was Garnacho, Rashford, and Anthony who just couldn't retain the ball and were fumbling it. And then we had to go and press again. And eventually, when you keep doing that, you're going to get caught out. So I don't know yet. And for me, the question is, does Erik ten Hag stick with one midfield three, or is he going to keep changing and based on the opposition? And obviously, injuries will force him to change anyways. I think it will be the latter, because Amrabat is a good player. I rate him. And I think he's somebody who can come into this team and give a big impact. But a lot of people are acting like it's going to be Amrabat, Casemiro, and Bruno. What if Amrabat is going to come in as cover for Casemiro? Because a lot of people think Casemiro hasn't been particularly great in the opening 3 games of the season. And when you look at Amrabat's profile, yes, technically he's really good, but he's also really good defensively. So he could be a cover at central defensive midfield as well, which is something a lot of people aren't talking about. So I don't know. There's just too many question marks for me. But for the sake of answering the question, I still think he's going to stick with Mount, Bruno, and Casemiro. Reason being, Mount is his marquee signing. That's the guy he spent the first priority of the sign of the summer. Pardon me, was the signing of Mason Mount. I think Mason Mount is to Erik ten Hag what Harry Maguire was to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's just going to be that player who starts, and people are just going to have to deal with it, in my opinion. Maybe I'll get proved wrong, but I think he really likes the idea of having Mount in the team.
Yeah, no, I think he does definitely like the idea of Mount in the team. I think he's shown that already, and it'll be interesting to see what role I think really that he gets, because again, people are piling in. He's only had a couple of games to sort of settle into a brand new team and a brand new way of doing things. So we shall see how he gets on. But Stu Lanzel's asked for your technical opinion here. So Amrabat, do you think he's going to do the Frankie de Jong role, is what you were trying to say there, not wrong? So
yeah, look, it's a good question. Again, both lads have spoke eloquently about 2 players. Marcus is right about Mason Mount. Sorry, Lanzel, just before I get to this. Marcus is right about Mason Mount. He's actually, and I predicted he's more of a January onwards signing because he'll need that time just to assess his own part in the team. What Marcus was right about, his pressing was ideal. He was the one that pressed in the face where everybody else zonal presses. And zonal pressing is sometimes better than being tight press, but Mason Mount's always been a tight presser, so he's up and he pushes and he pushes. But I don't think he was ever likely to work in the early stages of the season because Casemiro and Bruno had no clue what to do with him. They didn't know what to do with a live wire that was running in a 30, 40-yard circle all the time, which is what Mason Mount was doing. And what you had was that problem then of Bruno and Mason Mount almost crashing into each other like coconuts and conkers because Mason Mount was just pushing in. He was relentless. I'm not so sure his injury, if I'm being honest, guys, is as bad as everybody thinks. I think it's, just take you out of the equation for the minute, pal. Get yourself right. Start working on what we want to do. Amrabat, where does he fit in? Here's the key, Lanzel, for me. I would imagine if I'm Casemiro, if you look at the final 4 months of the season after his purple patch of bookings and sendings off, he went into a bit of a shell. If you looked at the way that he played, he wasn't playing his natural game of football. And when you stifle a player like Casemiro, you then stifle the whole team because he wasn't. And by the way, he'd lost his wingman Eriksen at that point. Now, Eriksen is quite pivotal to the way that Casemiro played, because he was able to win the ball and drop it 2, 3, 4 yards. That enabled Bruno to have the mount role at that particular time. Okay, and that's why we were so good in midfield. Amrabat coming in allows Casemiro to relax, completely relax, get in the changing room, start singing and start dancing, because you look around and there are certain players you look around and think, if I pick up a yellow card today, I'm okay. I haven't got a problem, and the team hasn't got a problem. And that's how you sometimes have to look at football. Amrabat, I don't think, is a direct replacement. I think Lanzel's right. I think there is an option for him to do a kind of Frankie de Jong role. But it isn't to babysit Casemiro. It's to work in unison with him, almost in a swaying fish moment. Very, very similar to the way that Caicedo and McAllister used to operate for Brighton last year. They were kind of in tandem. The way that they were going, they were in tandem. And Amrabat will allow that. But you get an injury to Casemiro, you can take him out of the equation and you can put Amrabat in, and he can hold and he can play with Eriksen. So the interesting thing will be, as far as I'm concerned, is there won't be two types of midfielders. There'll be 6 midfield players who can all operate in the same system, but different personnel at different times. I cannot quite believe I'm talking about it, because I thought it was way, way off. Way, way off. We like what Amrabat does. We know that he runs, quite funny, because when he was chasing the Mbappe clip, he put his head up and it was off like a rocket, wasn't he? His strengths are his stride across the pitch, actually. The way that he goes across the pitch is a very balanced footballer. He can take it into feet. He can hold it. He can win tackles. I don't think he's great in the air, Marcus. Dan, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong on there. I don't think he's great in the air. He's not going to get us many goals, but he's going to be in. Is he a destroyer? I don't know. I don't think he's a destroyer. I think he's more graceful player when he's on the ball as a destroyer. But he's got that ability to play alongside of Casemiro, to play alongside Eriksen, to play and utilise Mount and Bruno better than what we did at the beginning of the season. So I think it's a great signing. Was I talking about him 2 years ago? Absolutely not. None of us were. None of us were.
Yeah.
But but when you look at them and when you kind of see how he fits into the, football teams are a jigsaw puzzle. If you look around and you think, right, and this is why I wanted to emphasise the Martinez, not conundrum, but ability as an individual player. It's exactly what you got with Amrabat, as Dan said right at the very beginning. You've got thank you, Jennifer. You've got what Dan was saying about him. You've got that air of calmness, and that's the key thing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, Marcus, you've been in a changing room. You know what it's like. There are certain players, Dan, if you're in a changing room, there's certain players you do look and think, if I get into a bit of grief tonight, we're okay, but the team's okay. That's what Roy Keane always used to say. The team's going to be okay. We'll function without me. And I think now Casemiro, I think you're going to see a completely different Casemiro Sunday, back to his old self. He'll be a bit more aggressive, and he'll start to play better. I expect Eriksen and Casemiro and Bruno to play Sunday, by the way. I'm sure we'll talk about this. But do you disagree, lads? I mean, I don't know. Do you disagree with my assessment there?
I agree with almost everything you said. Actually, everything you said. The part about him not being good in the air, it's not something I've heard people talk about. And again, Amrabat.
I don't know. I was just wondering.
Yeah, I don't think he is particularly good in the air, but what I love about Amrabat is that he's just such a complete midfielder. It's been a while since we've had a player at Old Trafford who's just a jack of all trades and a master of some of those traits. So whether or not he'll be able to transfer to the Premier League waits to be seen, but I'm fairly optimistic about the signing. And for me, the only time he really came on my radar, I knew who he was, but I didn't really know much about him. The only time he came on my radar was during the World Cup. And then I started watching him a little bit for Fiorentina. But I was just amazed at how Manchester United were actually going to go in for this player, because for me, at least, it's very rare that you like a player, you admire a player, and then your club actually goes and signs that player. That doesn't happen very often in football, at least for me anyways. So I was amazed that we actually got this deal done, because I didn't believe we would get it done. I was very pessimistic, especially on deadline day. I was like, there's no ways he's coming. We should all just drop our hopes, and because it's the hope that kills you. But when we got the Here We Go from Fabrizio Mono, I was ecstatic. And the interesting thing about Amrabat is it's going to be lovely to see what people's sort of assessment is on him 6 months from now, 12 months from now, because I think a lot of people are thinking he's going to come straight into the team and be an impact player. I'm not sure that's the case. I'm really not sure that's the case. And that's not me saying he's not good enough. I think he is. I genuinely just think we've got midfield options now. And it's not as straightforward as saying, oh, this player's going to start, that player's going to start. I think you're going to see a fluid midfield three for Manchester United this season, where there's going to be players slotting into different positions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Listen, I was going to come to these sort of comments in a little bit, but as they're here, we'll do them now. MJ has popped into the United chat to talk about Elanga, saying Chelsea got humbled. Thanks for Elanga, lads. You are absolutely welcome. Let's hope he continues pulling up trees. Oh, dear. And of course, this one, good old Dave, good one for my home team today, Barry. Absolutely. So Charlie McNeil has joined Stevenage, which is a delight for us because obviously that's where I live. And if you're interested, go on the All for United Twitter. Has somebody on the inside who's managed to get us a copy of the goal. So if you want to see Charlie McNeil's little left foot to the far post, feel free. It's completely there on All for United. So cheers for that, Borough Travelling. Much appreciated. And yes, absolutely. Thank you for Roy Keane. So, I've probably done now, equal. So there we go. Dan, another position that we have been talking about quite a bit is goalkeeper. Now, obviously, Dean Henderson's gone off to Crystal Palace. We brought in Altay Bayinde from Fenerbahce. He's the only one who's an actual signing, really, because all the other ones have been sort of loan signings, but he's coming in till June 2027 and an option for another year. So it's a long-term sort of signing. What's your thoughts there? Because we've got Onana. We knew we needed some cover potentially for if he goes off to play with Cameroon in the Cup of Nations. So what's your thoughts on Bayinde and getting that sort of quality in, I suppose, really, other than just having Dean Henderson?
I genuinely don't know too much about the goalkeeper and the man, to be honest. So it came out a bit of a left field for me. I've seen a few stats and stuff, and he looks like he's half decent at maybe what we're looking for in terms of from the goalkeeper going forward. Got to say, I was a little bit confused because we let Kovar go, and I thought Kovar would honestly be the number two going forward because he looked solid in pre-season. He looked exactly like what we needed. So we didn't really need to sell to buy, but they've chose to do that. See why they've done that. Obviously, Henderson being sold is, I think, what's allowed Amrabat to be bought in the first place with the loan fee. So that's worked out well. A lot of people criticised Henderson for the interview last year. I didn't really buy into that myself. I thought he said it was more towards how he feels. I think he's always just been a bit arrogant, which he admitted in an interview today, I believe, saying that he feels like he could hit his potential more. I genuinely think he's going to go on to be a really good goalkeeper if he can avoid injuries. But yeah, I can see there's going to be obviously a transition at some point with Onana going to the African Cup of Nations. Be interesting to see if this goalkeeper comes in and can do the business. Obviously, it was linked with another goalkeeper that rejected us in the end as well. So it was obviously a plan in motion. I'm not overly worried. I think they're going to have enough time to get him on the training pitch and know what he wants. And I don't actually know how many games it will be, but I'd imagine it's not going to be more than 4 or 5 that he misses. So it shouldn't be too bad. Again, I think they've done really well in terms of deals in and out, quickly, efficiently. Everybody wanted an Onana. We got an Onana. Everybody wanted Henderson to go. We've got good money for him, 25 million if the add-ons are hit, which is not bad. Good sell-on clause. So you got to sort of tip the hat to the club a little bit in terms of the goalkeeper and the left back.
Yeah, I suppose so. Marcus and Stu, same sort of thing to you, really. If you've got anything, I don't know how well you know Altay Bayinde. I've got to be honest. I'm very much like Dan. He's not someone who's been on my radar, particularly over the course of the last couple of years. Either of you two?
I don't know much. I mean, it's a backup goalkeeper, so I'm not ashamed to say I know nothing about him.
I don't know a huge amount about him, but There's one thing you're going to get. There's a couple of things you need to understand about a backup goalkeeper, and the lads are right. Do you need to know anything about them? Not really, I guess, actually, but the club needs to know a shitload about them, because they've got to understand what they're going to be like in pressure situations, because playing for Manchester United is a pressure situation. Can this number 2 walk out at Old Trafford and perform? Because that is massively key to what we do. So what I've seen of him, and it's small parts, is and Dan's absolutely 100% right. He commands his area brilliantly. He's a big 6'4" goalkeeper. He's strong, he's powerful, and he will come out and he will punch the centre half and the forward out of the way to get on the ball, which is what you need. And I believe he's okay with his feet. Here's the key elements for me though about this kid. Played for Fenerbahce 126 times, something like that. Dan, you're probably able to give me the correct number, or Marcus. But he's played in a league. He's gone to Galatasaray, where it's absolutely ferocious. Ferocious. I mean, if you know anything about Turkish football, you'll know that the challenges that these clubs have and the passionate side of the fans, it's completely ferocious. And if you can, as a goalkeeper, not worry about things of that nature, it's like water off a duck's back to him. He can step out in front of 76,000 fans at Old Trafford, or he can go to the Etihad, or he can go to the Emirates at Arsenal, or he can go up to St James's Park at Newcastle. Where there's a real hostile, he can go to Anfield, where there's a real hostility, this kid can take it. So I think you buy a goalkeeper, backup goalkeeper, first on character, second on ability. And I think this kid's got ability. I really do. Again, if you watch him, hugely smart in his fawn coloured suits, grinning from ear to ear, but he's passionate. And I'm the first Turkish player to represent Manchester United. Absolutely terrific. That's what you're kind of looking at. You're looking at what it means to him to be able to step in front of the theatre dreams. So that's how I always judge a number 2, is their character. And I think this guy has got a big character. I would have no issues with him. I presume he's a Turkish international. I don't know. That I don't know, but I'm guessing he gets in the Turkey squad on a regular basis. Again, perhaps Dan, you might be able to say, or Marcus. But I think it's a smart piece of business. Apparently, we've been looking at him for 6 months.
Yeah, he does get in the Turkish squad. I think he's made 166 appearances, 51
166, is it?
Yeah,
and 51 clean sheets. So
not for Turkey.
No, just in general.
So he's no mug.
That would be insane.
Yeah, he's no mug then. So
yeah,
and that's what we need. I heard through my journalist friends that we've been looking at him for 6 to 8 months. It's no mistake. We just haven't just plucked a goalkeeper out the equation. Yeah. I do want to add something, by the way, to the goalkeeping situation. And by the way, and you all know this, I for one was a great advocate of removing De Gea and bringing in a different type of goalkeeper. But it kind of does make me wonder, did we jumpstart the gun with Onana and spending 50 million out of a budget that was always going to be FFP led? Could we have retained De Gea and maybe, bought in other players? It's one of those situations. But I'm happy with Onana, by the way. But I'm really happy with this. This kid's only about 26 as well, isn't he? 26, 27.
This 5-year contract, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a youngster when it comes to goalkeeping. So no, I think it's really important that, and I think he's got the character. That's the way I look at it anyway.
Well, let's hope he turns out to be one of those amazing number 2s that United have been lucky to have over the years. So it's one word answer time, chaps. We've hit that point. Signing that you are happiest with in this transfer window. So the one that makes you jump out your chair a little bit more, the one that when you heard the name, you gave it the old fist pump and the go on, son, that's what we wanted. And of course, because Dan's a host, we're going to throw him under the bus first to give the guests a chance to think about it. So what say you, Danny boy?
It's going to be a weird one because he's not played yet, but I'd say Højlund, because I think it's something that we've clearly been missing. I just hope he can hit the ground running.
Okay, he's going Højlund. Stu?
Well, as you well know, and so does Dan, I don't jump up my chair for anybody or anything. I never get excited. I've been there, seen it, done it with United and footy. Smartest move for me is Reguilon. But the type of player that I really does excite me, I'd have to give Amrabat a nod, really. I'm not saying Hoyland's a bad shout. I'm not saying Anana's a bad shout. I'm not saying anyone's a bad shout. I'm just, if I was pushed, which I am being pushed, Amrabat. But other than that, I remain seated because I don't get excited by signings anymore, really.
I've got to be honest with you. I heard a story once, and you'll have to tell me whether it's true or not, but that somebody once spilled boiling hot tea on your lap and you still didn't get out for that either.
That is correct, yeah. Yeah, I gave a seated uppercut.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Love that. I mean, Jennifer here's straight up, no, none of them, just a bunch of solid recruits. Where do you stand, Marcus?
I mean, I felt the same way until we got Amrabat. And that's more because I didn't believe we were going to get Amrabat and less to do with the player's quality. Because I rate Amrabat, but I don't think he's, jump out of your chair, get happy type of signing. I think he's just a very shrewd piece of business. So yeah, Amrabat for me. I still can't believe we actually got it over the line because I'd lost so much faith in the club, especially after announcing a backup goalkeeper on deadline day.
It's kind of why it does make you think, doesn't it, from a business point of view, about De Gea stroke Onana. And me and Alan spoke a lot about De Gea being necessary to replace, but sometimes other areas come first, don't they? But look, like I say, I think Onana's top 3 in the Premier League of stoppers. I really do, and I think eventually we'll see the best of him. Come. Well, if he does go, I mean, here's the thing, right? And this, I've got to bring this up, right? I have to bring this up because it's a question for all of you, really. Yeah. When you're signing Onana, you are clearly under the impression he's retired from international football. You must be clearly under that impression, and then to have this kind of thrown at you that he may come out of self-imposed exile and be away for 5 weeks, you'd be kind of unhappy. So, sorry, Jordan. Hi. So I just wondered, what you guys thought of that.
I mean, for me personally, it's not a massive deal. It was a little bit upsetting to see because it's like, oh man, that sucks. We're going to miss him for a significant period of time. But at the end of the day, it is, just a goalkeeper. And not saying a goalkeeper isn't important. Obviously it is. But I think if it was another position, I would be more upset. For instance, Amrabat might be going on international duty for the AFCON as well. So that, I think, is going to be more impactful on the team than Onana will be, But yeah, that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, Morocco will 100% get there, won't they? They'll qualify. Yeah. I think Cameroon can qualify this international break, can't they? Next weekend.
I'm not sure, but
I think they can qualify.
They can qualify. Yeah,
it's definitely one of those interesting ones, and I think, guys, that actually for me, thinking about this whole transfer window, in a way, I'm quite pleased that we haven't really got that marquee signing. Because in the past, it's all been about that. You get a marquee signing, you get this one name that everybody's fawning over. And actually, there's a lot less pressure on this one. Like Stu said, sometimes it is just a jigsaw puzzle. Where do we need some depth? Where do we need some positions to be filled? And then actually, let's just go about our business, filling them, not necessarily having the egos, not necessarily having all of that, not having the 500 grand a week mob being pulled in. Instead, it's just footballing decisions. And I think it's been a long time since we've been able to say that about Man United. We've been just trying to think about the footballing decisions rather than anything else.
100%. I mean, all the marquee signings. Look, I've never agreed with marquee signings anyway. If we get taken over by X, Y, or Z and they throw 300 million around, what would you do? Oh, here's an interesting conundrum then. Purely from a footballing viewpoint. Chelsea spent £1 billion and bought in how many players? 20 players, something along those lines. Would you have been better off, or would they have been better off by keeping the bulk of their squad and spending 500 million on 4 players?
Well, would Chelsea?
isn't it? Yeah, just Chelsea. I was looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with Chelsea, the big problem is, I mean, it's two problems. Obviously, one is the sheer amount of money they've spent is going to put a lot of pressure on them as a club, and I don't think bringing in that amount of players makes sense, anyways.
Yeah.
But the second problem is that they're all very young, and when you have young players on these extremely long contracts, you're taking a huge gamble, because if they don't work out, they're stuck at your club on high wages, and you're not getting any resale value. And then on top of that, a lot of their players, if you guys look at Chelsea's signings, a lot of them are wingers. Yes, they've signed Nkunku, who will probably play through the middle, but a lot of them are wingers. They haven't actually addressed the number 9 issue. They haven't actually addressed the centre-back region properly, even though they brought in Disasi. So with Chelsea, it's not even how much they've spent, it's how they've spent it. When you have so many players in the same position, I mean, they've even just signed Cole Palmer, on top of every other winger they have. It's like you're going to have all these players who know... Yeah, like imagine you go to work as a manager and you're trying to get these spoiled millionaires to buy into your ethos, to buy into your discipline, and about 5 of them know that they're not in your plans because they're all playing in the same position, but they know only one person's going to get minutes. Imagine what that's going to do to disrupt your dressing room. So I wouldn't want that ownership model at Manchester United for that reason, because you just have a toxic dressing room that has lots of issues with player power. You'd have players who are just there just for the vibes, and the funny thing is, a lot of these players, when they know that they are not going to be a part of the plans, they might not do it consciously or on purpose, but they do drag their feet, and their mood impacts the dressing room. It will trickle into your first team. It will lower the standards, because you're only as good as your worst players, as some people like to put it, right? Everybody focuses on the ceiling raises. What about the floor? You still need a solid floor, and the higher your worst player is, the better the overall squad is. I don't know if that quite makes sense, but I'm a firm believer in that philosophy.
Well, what did they? No, you're right, because they spent 90 million quid or 100 million quid on Mudryk.
Yeah,
something like that. His value today
replaced him.
Yeah, his value today is half that.
Yeah.
His value today, right now, is half of that already, because they brought in players in and around where he plays. And, how do you get any momentum as a footballer when you're in that situation? So you're going to sit on your 8-year contract, quite frankly, because you've made it. You're in dream world, aren't you?
It's always baffled me the way they do this, because Ferguson was the best at it, and I'll give Klopp credit as well, because he's very good at it. You keep the bulk of your team, and you go and you make a marquee signing, maybe one every other summer. A Wayne Rooney, a Rio Ferdinand, a Varane. What we got sucked into at Manchester United for the last decade is we needed 2 or 3 marquee signings a window, and it just doesn't work. No matter which way you look at it, Chelsea's not going to work, because they're making too many. Or this lad's special. The fans want us to go and get this lad, and ultimately you haven't got a squad. Then you've got a sort of an England situation going off, where you've got a team of absolute world-class players who aren't going to do anything together because they've not got the glue that holds it together. So this is what I mean by we've got to really look at this window and be positive about it. You might disagree with some of the fees that we've paid in terms of Højlund and in terms of Mount or whatever, but these are the pieces of the jigsaw that will hopefully form a proper team. So it's got a future, it's got ability now, and then going forward, we only have to add. Ferguson used to say he would go and add 1 or 2 that improved the squad, and it was not necessarily a first team player, but a player that just improved the squad, whether that was a Park, whether that was whoever. It's just, and that's where we need to get ourselves. Man City are doing it at the minute. They're spending some money doing it like we are, but they got Alvarez in ready for this season because they knew Morez was going to leave. And look at him. He's hit the floor absolutely running in this system, and he looks like a no-brainer to start for the rest of the season.
But then I suppose with that, Dan, is that the thing about Ferguson and that is he had a very successful side, didn't he? So he didn't need to go and make a whole load of
change. I think it's the desperation to chop and change too quickly.
I'm almost there. What I was trying to get at with that is that actually, because you've got a squad that's in your mind, actually just making the 1 or 2 changes to it makes life a lot easier, because you haven't got to embed too many principles. You haven't got so much work to do. And that's what Chelsea have got a problem. They've got a whole new squad. They've got to try and teach the Chelsea way by just having
this is where so-called modernism comes into football, Barry. This is the funny part for me about football. Oh, it's all modern. We must have an inverted fullback. We must have a goalkeeper that plays with his feet. You know, Alex Stepney did that in the 70s, by the way. Rolled it out 12 yards and then made a long pass or a short pass. There's nothing new. Absolutely nothing new whatsoever. False nines have been around for years, if you want to call it a false nine, but it wasn't called a false nine at the time. Nothing that you are seeing on a football pitch is new. It just isn't. It's just a recycled version of old systems, because you can only do so much. You can only play so way. It's about the players that do it. And Dan's right about what Fergie would do. You know, over his lifetime, he rebuilt 3 or 4 teams during his Manchester United career. But what he did was add. But what he also did, Evan Ferguson would not still be at Brighton. Won't be at Brighton next year. It would be at Old Trafford. That would be it. We want you. We're going to go and and we're going to go and get you. We are moron owners, whoever they, or whatever they're up to, just don't seem to understand how, English football works after 18 years, 19 years, however long it's been, of dross. They don't get it. They don't understand football. And, there's arguments to say Fergie realised he couldn't work with these idiots and that he wouldn't be able to carry on the way that we're doing. And probably same as David Gill, and so it's all changed. But it all comes down to modernism, and modernism is bollocks in football. Trust me, it is. It's just a waste of time. Talk about what your eyes can see, not what you think your eyes see.
Yeah, I mean, can I also just add to that? One of the biggest pet peeves I have of Manchester United is we've obviously spent a lot of money, and we've spent that money badly. But we're also really bad at selling players, because selling players in football is a tricky art. Because if you want to do it really well and you want to make a profit, you've got to look at clubs like Brighton. You've got to look at clubs like Ajax, Dortmund. These clubs have mastered the art of letting go of players when they're still useful. It's very difficult to convince someone to buy something of yours if you think it's crap, right? But if you think it's good and you shine it up and you make it look really nice, then suddenly people are going to want that thing. And one thing Manchester United have been really bad at is prematurely giving out big contracts to players instead of saying, you know what, actually, even though this guy's really good and really important, we're going to cash in on him and reinvest that money back into the team. And then on top of that, when we do get players who have gone way below their resale value, we don't just bite the bullet and say, okay, we've taken an L, we're just going to cut our losses and sell this player for a small amount of money. Instead, we hold on to them until they eventually leave for free, which is really annoying. And I think the tricky thing for Ten Hag this season, more than anything, how many times have you heard Manchester United fans talk about a lack of mentality in the big moments? I think part of that stems from the fact that there's a lot of players in that dressing room who know they aren't good enough and are just lingering around, not being productive. And Ten Hag is going to have a very difficult situation this season of dealing with the squad of players who, and some of these players he's going to have to use. That's the awkward thing. Some of these players he's probably had conversations with saying, listen, mate, you're not good enough. But now, because there's so many injuries, he's going to have to play some of them,
I think one of the biggest issues, Marcus, and I'll elaborate on what you were saying, because you're absolutely right. Football has changed with player power. In Fergie's day, and it didn't really matter whether it's Fergie's or Keegan's day or Houlier's day or any. Harry Maguire is brought into the office, and I like Maguire. I want him to stay, etc. But he's told, you're going. That's it. There is no, we want to sell you. You're going. We're going to put you out on the market. We're going to accept an offer, and you are going. The West Ham offer, Maguire would have been through the door at Old Trafford years ago. Through the door, he would have been told he was going, and that's it. There'd be no payoff. You're going. Renegotiate your contract. You're going, and that's it. That's what happened with football. When Manchester United used to come calling, CEOs would hide. Even Daniel Levy would hide when David Gill was on the phone to him. He would hide. Now they don't give a damn. They laugh. They rub their hands together. We can have some fun for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. City call. The Nunes deal with Wolves. City said, no, we want him. What's it going to take? 56 million quid. Okay, this is what we'll do. And that's how you do it. That's how you negotiate. Liverpool did the same with Gravenbach. Didn't piss about. Went in, did the deal. 3 days. You know, I mean, this is what happened. City have spent 256 million quid, I think, on 3 players. It's gone completely under the radar because they didn't play it out in the thing. And we can't even get Amrabat over the line. We didn't sell McTominay. McTominay should have been an easy sell, a very easy sell to Newcastle, West Ham, Brighton. Anyway, should have been a really easy sell. But anyway.
I mean, John Rhodes popped in here and he's already said the same sort of thing. But I mean, I've already had this discussion with people on Twitter myself. I don't blame Harry Maguire. At the end of the day, if you've given someone a contract, absolutely.
No, I get that. I get that. But this is where the club has got to turn around and say, you're gone. You are gone.
Just to jump in,
the club will need to jump into that. If they need to pay extra money in order for him to go out, well, then that's your fault.
Yeah.
But just to jump in from a different perspective in this, like obviously, I've always been quite vocal about Maguire.
Yeah, me too.
The papers have very much ran a campaign against Maguire from the last 18 months. So the only reputable outlet that spoke about Maguire was Orstein, and he said no talks ever took place with West Ham. No contract talks ever took place. There was an offer, but the player never asked for a payout, nothing. So if you take that at face value, then Maguire was told by Ten Hag, you can either leave or you can fight for your place. And he said, I'll fight for my place. So we should be happy that he's doing that. But from the flip side of it, in terms of the deals themselves, if Manchester United value Scott McTominay at 35 to 40 million and they're only offered 20, they should say, no, we're not going to sell, we'll keep them. But then you have to integrate them back into the team that you value them at 35, 40 million. So they're going to get plenty of starts this season, surely, because that's what the club had valued them at. So you've sort of got to look at it both ways. If they think that McTominay is worth 35 to 40 million, you've got to play him this season and let him show that he's worth 35 to 40, or you're selling him for 15 next year, or you take the loss. So we've got to make a stand as a football club and say, we're not going to keep getting bullied. We're going to, if you don't give us what we want for our player, they stay. And if you don't accept this offer, we'll go and look elsewhere, which is, to be fair, Man City are very good at that. They've bid for a couple of players this summer. It's not gone their way, and they've gone, that's too much for us. We're walking away. And they've gone on to the next target. And the clubs, it's just a bit of a mess behind the scenes. Me personally, I think we should have sold Maguire and McTominay. But we should have got 70 million. If you can't get the 70 million, you have to keep them, because you have to make a stand that if you rate these players, and that's what you say, you stand by it. But then this is the problem coming into the season. So Maguire's been battered from every corner, every piece. You've seen it with Sancho, McTominay, and this is where I don't like modernism in football. So Sancho's been written off this season before it's even started, and we're going to need him. Maguire's been battered before he's even started. Bearing in mind, Maguire's had, I would say, one bad season, and then he was very good last season. He lost 3 games all season with us. He was rubbish in the first 2. He got dropped, but when we needed him, he was there. And the same with McTominay. When we needed him, he was there. You look back at Fred and McTominay now, and you see some of the records, like I say, in the Premier League in Solskjaer's first full season and second full season, they lost about 6 games when they started together. And they must have been doing something right. It's just sometimes people are a bit short-sighted. So we've got to sort of find the edge of the knife where we say, we value this player at this. If you don't bid, we'll keep them, but we'll integrate them back into the squad. If we don't see McTominay and Maguire now at all this season, don't be shocked to see them go for 10 million at the end of the season. You've sort of got to say, we value them at this, they'll play. And if they don't play, you shouldn't have valued them at what you valued them at. You should have got them out the door.
You're right. And you know, saying 70 million for someone like Maguire, let's be honest, whether people agree with that or not, he's just been picked for the England side again. So, you know, clearly the guy has got something about him.
Well, he should have got 70 million for the peer.
I think 70 million.
35 million for one and 35 for the other would have been fine. But there was definitely the market there. But it sounds to me as if McTominay very much could have gone to Fulham yesterday, and he turned the move down. So he's obviously got to think about the player's ambitions. He's not just going to go anywhere.
Yeah, Fulham wanted him. Fulham were going to pay 40 million.
Well, we are going to have to move on because we managed to spend an entire 60 minutes on deadline day, which is wonderful. And congratulations to those of you who kept with us. Good job. Lanzel, poor guy here. He's Martial out and Ferguson in. There is no way that Sir Alex is coming back. To be fair, Ten Hag's doing a pretty good job. I think
I think he meant.
It's not about Evan Ferguson.
I know who he
I got the joke,
means.
Barry.
Oh, okay.
It's
My
never
bad.
good when you explain the joke. For another joke, if you fancy something a bit different on today's podcast, every time we talk to Dan, close your eyes and you'll be transported to BBC One, where you'll feel like you're hearing Jermaine Genius. So
A lot more sense.
give it a try. It's a great moment. I do it every now and again. It's like, it's JJ. So there we go. We need to move on to Arsenal, guys. And Bruno Fernandes has just been made Player of the Month for Manchester United. Marcus, how big of a deal do you think Bruno, Captain Marvel, as he is at the moment, is going to be for this game against Arsenal? It's a tough one. They're only a point clear of us at the minute. It's a good chance for us to, I know it's early on in the season, but a chance to get above them and give you that sort of boost early on in the season. Do you think it's a doable proposition, this game against Arsenal? Can you see us coming away with the 3 points?
I mean, listen, last time out against Arsenal at the Emirates, we didn't have Casemiro. Everyone was panicking, and we actually got away with the point. However, Christmas doesn't come around every day, and lightning doesn't often strike the same spot twice, at least not in close proximity. So I'm afraid of the Arsenal game. But if Bruno plays like he did against Nottingham Forest, I think we will be in good hands. And I think there's a lot more interesting discussions to have in terms of team selection than Bruno, because I mean, I get bored of defending Bruno online. You know, there's people who clearly just don't rate him for whatever reason, and that's their opinion. I'm never going to change it. But, you know, it's funny to me how people continuously downplay his output. People continuously downplay how good of a creative player he is. And you even had Kevin De Bruyne coming out saying that he would actually put him above Odegaard and above a couple of other players in the league. So it's like, you know, what more evidence do people need that Bruno is the guy, you know? And one of the most common things I hear people level against Bruno Fernandes is just how much he loses the ball and how much he's bad at, you know, retaining the ball. But I'm like, he's an advanced midfielder. You know, he's not meant to retain the ball. He's meant to spray the ball into the final third and try to create chances. You know, if he was playing where Casemiro is playing, it would be a different story. I would understand, you know, the need for ball retention. So yeah, I think he'll be a big component of us playing against Arsenal. I think, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what Ten Hag does with the back four. I think that's where I'm going to be really keen to see the team sheet.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'll be brutally honest with you, I brought Bruno up purely because I had it written down to talk about the fact they won Player of the Month, but because we've had such a brilliant conversation for the last hour, didn't feel like that was a talking point we could really spend a lot of time on. So wanted to point that out. Well done, Bruno, for getting Player of the Month. Well deserved. Stu, Marcus says there's other positions, other places on the team sheet that we need to look at. How do you see us starting? What do you see sort of being the ideal proposition for Ten Hag to be able to get out there and give Arteta's boys a beating? Anyone remember that 8-2? What a moment that was. Can we do one of those again? That'd be lovely.
Look, it's a bit of a difficult one, this one, because I think it all depends on how Ten Hag assumes Arsenal are going to play. I don't think they'll play Partey at right back. I think they'll move Partey into the middle of the park.
I think he's injured.
Oh, he's injured, is he?
Yeah, he's out for 3 months.
I didn't hear that. I've been out all day, so I didn't hear that. Oh, okay, that's changed my opinion then a little bit. As for us, and Marcus is right, by the way, about how we set up as a defensive unit, because Martinelli and Saka are all their kingpins. So you've got to get a hold. You've got to get a hold of Odegaard, Saka, and Martinelli, because those are what, you know, makes them tick. I don't see Havertz having too much of an influence in the game. But Odegaard, Martinelli, and Saka, I do. I think those for me are their three danger players. I didn't know Partey was injured, although he was completely played out of position at right back. I mean, if you just shoehorning Partey in to play at right back, if I was Partey, I'd have told Arteta to do one, because you just become a kind of anonymous footballer, and he has been anonymous, and so has Havertz. For me, it's a very straightforward starting 11. It will be the back four of Reguilon. I'm sure he'll throw him in. Wan-Bissaka. I think it'll be Lindelof and Martinez. And I think it will be Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno. Now, Marcus is right about Bruno, and the other thing that he didn't mention was that when you receive the ball as much as Bruno does, the odds are you are going to make slightly more errors than other players who don't have the ball as much. It's just law of averages. I mean, it's not rocket science. But again, the eye test proves otherwise, doesn't it? Oh, Bruno's lost the ball again. But hold on. In the last 5 minutes, the ball's been played into him 8 times. You're not going to control the ball and win the ball 8 times, because what happens is the defender looks at it and says, right, the ball's going to come into Bruno. I'm going to step across. I'm just going to nudge him slightly. I'm going to do something that's going to upset him. And that's what happens in football. So we've got to get away from the fact that, Bruno's losing the ball, etc., to why. What's happening? Why is that doing? And that it then comes down to the players. If Bruno's been given the ball into a position where he's got 2 players that can instantly get there within 5 yards, he's going to have issues. He really is. Any player will have issues. Mbappe will have issues. Zidane would have had issues. Any footballer will have issues. And this is where our game has been struggling just recently. It happened at Forest all the time. We were utilising Bruno and we weren't utilising Eriksen too much, although Eriksen actually was the better player against Forest than Bruno. Bruno had that ability to win challenges back, win the ball back, was up and down the pitch, where Eriksen was back to his graceful best. He really was. His control was tight, his defending was better, his passing ability was better. And we can hurt Arsenal with those 3. We really can. Our problem is further forward. We've got an under-firing Rashford at the moment. We've got Garnacho, who's forgotten how to play football and gone back to when he just broke into the team and started running with blinkers on. We've got Anthony that has clearly got other things on his mind at the moment for obvious reasons. And we've got Martial at the moment, or Højlund, whichever we decide it's going to be. That is going to be a bit of a problem for us, because Martial got 60 minutes under his belt at Forest. He did okay. He wasn't brilliant, but he did okay. But he's lost that burst. That 10-yard burst is gone. Garnacho's 10-yard burst is gone, and he's 18 years old, for Christ's sake. Needs to sort that out. And Anthony's gone back to his inability to use his right peg. Not that he had an ability in the first place, but he's forgotten what to do. Now, if you're Rasmus Højlund, by the way, and you're watching these 3 games that we've been playing, and you're thinking, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to be twiddling my thumbs on the penalty spot? Is the ball actually going to come in? Is it going to make it to me? Well, the answer with Reguilon is it will. It will get in there, because Reguilon will put the ball in. Wan-Bissaka's not one for a cross, but Eriksen will find him. So we may play a different type of football on Sunday that we're not used to, because one man will change that, and that is a 6'2" brick shithouse of a 20-year-old blonde striker. So that'll be really key if he plays or not. And I think he'll put him in. I do. So I'm going to go with this as my starting 11. So that's an Onana in goal. Wan-Bissaka, Reguilon. It's going to be Lindelof and Martinez for me. Casemiro, Eriksen, Bruno, Rashford, Anthony, and Højlund. That would be my 11. And I believe we beat Arsenal, as it happens. I think we're going to beat Arsenal. I think we're going to beat them 2-1. But I think we'll concede. But that's how I think we'll play. But the proviso has got to be that Rashford and Anthony have got to get their thumbs out their arses, and they've got to deliver that football. You've got to deliver that football.
To be fair, I think Rashford was doing a bit more of that in the game against Forest. He certainly grew into the game.
Rashford attacked the diagonal once, and I've been calling for him to attack the diagonal for the last 18 months, and he got the pen. And it was a Stonewall pen, because my seat was right, or my seat is right where Rashford penetrated the box. But it's, Anthony's got to start looking up. He's got to start delivering those crosses. If you're going to cut back on your left, float it over, because you've got a dangerous footballer in Højlund, I think. So it's 2-1 for me, and I'm gonna get Rasmus to get the second, to get the winner.
Big Johnny K's gone for 2 of those as well. And you're right. Absolutely. There's things I find very hard to disagree with there. I find it very interesting in modern culture at the moment with football, how we just sort of hit a point when nobody's allowed to make a mistake. It's like everybody's now just expected to be pristine and perfect and mistakes never happen. And I think people are forgetting that no matter how much these people are paid,
Barry,
mistakes
if you
are
don't
going to
make
happen.
a mistake on a football pitch, mate, you're not playing. You're not on the. You're in the changing room because you don't make mistakes in the changing room.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be surprised.
Go on the pitch.
That's there you go. Dan, I wanted to ask you, I was going to ask you the Højlund question actually, because Ten Hag did say in his press conference, I mean, to be fair, everybody, including the people that we signed yesterday, are around and available. Regulon was one of them who was mentioned, ditto for Amrabat. But Højlund is definitely on the up, on the chance, and he says that he is available to start. Do you think he will start? And where do you sort of see us going? Because Connor's mentioned, we've only won there twice in 10 years.
If I remember rightly, last year we lost in the last minute, didn't we?
I believe so.
Last minute goal. Yeah,
The
Yeah.
women's team beat them in the
Yeah.
last minute. So, we've caused them a bit of pain there as well. But then also this. So will it be Højlund? And are we going to go at Arsenal or are we going to try and hit him on the break? Which one do you think is going to work on our favour the best?
Listen, I personally, I would love to see some changes, but it's probably my only critique of Ten Hag. I don't think he'll make one. I think it will be the same team as what I think it's pretty much. There's no injuries to that team, so I think it'll be the same team. I think Dallo will be left back, Martial will start, Lindelof will partner Martinez, and then we might look at maybe some of the newer players, 45 minutes on, 60 minutes on. Ultimately, the football this season has not been fantastic in terms of what he wants, which is to keep the ball, control possession, go at teams that way. We've been much better at winning the ball back high or countering, and I think that's what's going to work against Arsenal. We need to try and win the ball back high and counter high, or if they're attacking, win the ball back and see if we can't transition the ball quickly to again be on the counter. I fancy it to be something like a 1-1, 2-2 sort of a job. I think it's going to be tough there. Arsenal are a very good team, no matter which way you look at it. Our record at the Emirates is not fantastic. It'd be nice to get a win. I can just see it being a draw myself.
Okay. Lanzel is so confident that we're going to beat Arsenal with 10 men here. Because he's missed out our right back. I think he's put Anana, Regulon, Martinez, Lindelof. Nobody
Predicting a Wan-Bissaka red.
Yeah.
And he's got Sancho in there, and he's not travelled, has he?
Martial, Sancho. Yeah, Sancho's obviously going to be doing a bit of a box to box type
Yeah.
job. So.
To be fair, I think two teams that have gone down to 10 men this season have won. If I'm not mistaken, didn't West Ham get a red card against Chelsea and then Liverpool against Newcastle? So maybe it's a good omen, get Wan-Bissaka sent off in the first minute.
Forest went down to 10 men against us. They didn't win.
Actually, that's true.
Can't forget that one. But there's always an exception to the rule, isn't there, Marcus? So let's say. But in other words, Lanzel, let us know you're playing at right back, because I'm itching to know if you've got AWB or Diego Dalot. Okay, well, we've had scores from Dan and Stu. Where are you going with it, Marcus? What can you see the score being tomorrow?
I'm not optimistic about this game, but I do think things that would make my mind change on match day tomorrow would be seeing Rashford on the left. That would be number one. Number two would be seeing the pair that Stu mentioned at centre back with Lindelof and Martinez. And number three, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but I actually thought that Anthony played well against Nottingham Forest. I thought he did the basics right. And what I like about Anthony by comparison with Garnacho and Rashford is he works really hard defensively. Yeah. And I know that, there's football fans out there, the eye test merchants, Baller FC, they hate hard work. They hate work ethic. They hate anything that doesn't have to do with technical ability. But these things are so important in a team that's trying to play a high pressing, high tempo style of football. You need someone with legs and you need someone who has a good attitude. And what I like about Anthony specifically, but also Martinez, them two, even when they're not playing well, they have such a good attitude. Their heads never drop. And Martinez has been a player who I don't think has performed at the same levels. I think his first 6 months at United were really good. But after coming back from the World Cup, there was a bit of a drop-off. But his work ethic and his mentality make it such that even when he's not performing that well, he's still above the rest of the squad. And I just wish players like Rashford and other players in the team would adopt that mindset of just not giving up and keeping your head up. It's so important. So for me, I would love to see that. In terms of who I'd love to see through the middle, I would love to see Højlund start, but it's very unlikely. Martial at the Emirates, I saw Connor's chat earlier basically saying that, maybe you can link up again. Listen, it's not 2017 anymore. I don't think Martial's that guy.
Can it be just for today?
I don't think Martial's that guy. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But, again, I wouldn't mind seeing Martial through the middle. But, yeah, I think it really depends on those three factors. Rashford starting on the left, having a good game. Obviously, Bruno playing well. Martinez having a good game. And then, our midfield being on it. And we might actually get away with something, And actually, just one last point. Arsenal have had a slow start this season. Now, you could argue based on the numbers that they've been better than last season, which is kind of true. They played better against Fulham this season than they did last season. Crystal Palace, their game this season was better than last season. But overall, they've had a slow start. And without Partey in the team, without Gabriel, who starting at the back with Saliba, I think there's a chance Arteta big brains this. I think there's a chance he tries some weird formation and plays an even stranger composition than he's been playing over the last few weeks. And
just to back up Marcus's point there, if my memory serves me correct, Anthony went off last season at 2-2, and we conceded the goal down that side. Which is exactly the point he's trying to make. Defensively, he works really hard for the team. So I can remember after that game, we sat there thinking, if maybe you would have left Anthony on, that goal might not have come.
Here's the thing, though. It is the thing, and it's only a very, very small thing. Just in case Højlund starts, we've got to play a different brand of attacking football.
Yeah.
To utilise him. And all of you, you're right about Anthony. My criticism is his crossing ability. If you've got a striker in that Højlund, can you imagine if Ruud was playing in this team? Ruud van Nistelrooy would go.
Have someone up against the wall, wouldn't he?
It's one of the issues he had with Ronaldo. When Ronaldo was dicking about with the ball, he wasn't. Look, I've made me run. I want that ball in, bang, because I'm there. I'm going to score. And Højlund's got to be that type of guy. He's got to be that aggressive with Anthony and Rashford. I need that ball, lads, because if I don't get it, you may as well not have me on the pitch, because that's my strength. He's great at hold-up play. He can spin in behind, but my God, he's a big, strong lad, and we need, if we want this target man, and the target man's coming back, by the way, the Andy Gray type players, the Ruud van Nistelrooys, these types of players are coming back now. Look at what Haaland does. He is absolutely livid if that ball isn't crossed in. He's fuming. He's why aren't you crossing the ball? And City crossed the ball a lot more now, have you noticed? Because they're utilising in Haaland. So we've got to utilise Højlund. So Anthony's just got to be more cuter and more efficient with the football, but Rashford has to do the same. Otherwise, we're not going to see the best out of Højlund. So we may play a different game if he plays. If Martial doesn't play, I'd like to see him all floating front three, then interchangeable between Rashford, Martial and Anthony. If you're going to do something, bamboozle the back four, because as a centre-half, if you're marking Martial 1 minute and you're marking Rashford the next, you don't know who to pick up. Because you're thinking, hold on, he's your man. Oh no, actually he isn't. He's my man. It's a bit of a nightmare. So I want to see Højlund play, and I want to see him succeed. The Reguilon thing for me is Saka. I think Saka will absolutely destroy Dalot.
I agree. I'm not confident in. It's just an issue with Ten Hag. I just think sometimes he sticks to what he knows, and I wonder whether he's a little bit. Højlund's only just come back in. Amrabat's only just joined. Reguilon's only just come to the club, so it'll be interesting. I hope he makes the changes, and It's elite football,
isn't it? It's elite football. If you're in that changing room, you're Reguilon. You're going to the listen, Gaffer. I'm ready, mate. Throw me in. Don't make me watch. Don't make me watch, mate. Get me out there, because I can help you. That's what I'll be doing.
It will,
exactly.
100%. That's going to be very, very interesting to see how that goes. The things I picked up from that, Marcus, they're talking about the eye test merchants. I thought that was Specsavers, isn't it, or Vision Express? Eye test merchant. But then I had Stu talking about a floating front three. So, and Connor's mentioned it as well. So maybe it's you. that needs to go.
I'd like to see our players with wings. I'd like to see them floating like angels with wings. That's what I would like. No, I see it be more. The most clinical teams aren't predictable. And let's be honest, fellas, what's more predictable than Anthony on the right and Rashford on the left?
Yeah, I mean,
there were parts of the game against Forest where they did switch. So Anthony didn't go out to the left on occasions. I don't know if you guys saw the match, but they did, and Rashford came out to the right. But then, it can work to your advantage. It really can if you're clever with it. Some of the best strikers ever ghost into the box because they're not in a position where people are expecting. Where's Rashford? And they go to the box. So
Spurs are doing it at the moment.
Think about. Sorry, Marcus.
I was about to say that. I was about to say.
Postecoglou in a recent press conference was asked about his play style, and I think he said something about being fluid. Like he told his players, "Don't stay to your position, be fluid." Like sometimes you'll see who's there. I think it's Porro who plays in one of the positions.
Porro.
He was talking about how Porro was in the box at some point playing as a number 9, and he didn't mind it. He didn't try to rip him on that. He wants his players to be fluid. So, and Tottenham look silky to be fair this season. So, I think having a floating positions is really key, and having that rotation. It's something I actually used to criticize United a lot for back in the day, but I kind of got bored of it. Talking about it is the fact that our players don't really pay attention to when somebody else drifts out of position. And we've had a lot of players in the past, and some of them are still in the team who don't have the awareness to say, okay, nobody's guarding left back. Instead of yelling at someone else, I'm going to go fill in. And then when the ball is out, I'll go have a word with whoever's supposed to be there. There's so many times where you're seeing United players just look into open space and then just drop their head. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just run into the space and cover it. Like, who cares whose fault it is? Like, it's such a childish mindset to have of like, oh,
basic football. So. It's basic football. Because, when I was 5, and we were, when our coach would talk to us, even at 5, he'd say, well, look, when we're going to line you up and here's your position, your left back, Stu, for example, but just because you're left back, I want you to visualize a square, a big square, and that's where I want you to operate in. So don't just stay there. If you've got to come inside, I want you to come inside. If you've got to get outside, I want you to go outside. But I want you to operate in that square or that circle. And that's how we always operated. You operate in zones on the pitch, and it's the best way to be able to look and say to Rashford or say to whoever it is, right, here's our area. This is our area. This is where we look after first and foremost. But if I've got to move, I need you back. I need you in to cover me. It's conversation and it's basic. It just doesn't happen anymore. It's nuts, isn't it?
Communication. That's all that's really needed. But absolutely, I agree as well that the fluidity is a helpful thing. Gives the defence something else to think about. If you've just got Anthony running at you all the time, like you say, all of a sudden now you've got Rashford, and Rashford's got the ability to go on the right foot. He's more likely to come around you. So, but it's taking advantage of those moments when it happens. So there we go. That's the Arsenal part of the job done, which leaves us really just one little thing that we're going to talk about. So I'd kind of like your ideas and thoughts on the Champions League draw. We're going to talk a little bit about the Carabao Cup as well. In fact, we'll do the Carabao Cup first real quickly. If anyone's got anything to say there, we've got Crystal Palace. And I suppose really the biggest thing about that is the fact that Dean Henderson obviously has gone to Crystal Palace. So we will be seeing him again. He'll obviously love to thwart us if he can. I suppose really the question on that one, can you see us retaining the Carabao Cup this year? I suppose would be where we'd go with that one. So we'll make that a short one. Dan, what do you reckon? Can we retain the Carabao Cup this year?
I'm just interested to see how he goes with it. He went really strong last year, as if he wanted to win every competition. So I'll wait till I see the first team sheet. But if he's intent on going for it, then I can see us getting far in every competition.
Marcus, I mean, some would argue that the signing of someone like Johnny Evans would be perfect for these sort of games, having these players and Bayindir as well, potentially. This is the sort of breeding ground in the past where the second string players have had their opportunity to shine.
That is true. But the problem is with Ten Hag, he's incredibly stubborn, and he believes that every game is important. And from his days at Ajax, he's always just started his strongest team. So as much as I don't agree with it, because I don't think we have the right squad, he's the manager, not me. And just on Crystal Palace, they actually didn't look very good against Arsenal. So I think we'll be fine against them, even if we were to play a second string team. But yeah, those are my thoughts, I guess.
Bang him. And Stu?
I'm kind of on the camp with Gypsy King, 65. I think Ten Hag will focus on the Champions League. And I think I think Marcus and Dan are right. I think he'll go strong in the Carabao Cup, but I think he'll want to win the Champions League. So the chances of us winning the league are quite slim, let's be honest. The way City are playing at the minute, Jesus Christ, they never start this well. Never. They're going to take some stopping. I think we could win the Champions League, strange as it seems. I think we've got Champions League players now. We've got good European experience, and I think we could go very, very deep in the Champions League. So I think we can win the Carabao Cup. Do I think it'll prioritise? I doubt it. I think he's realised you can't prioritise 4 competitions. You just can't do it.
I hope he has, because this is where I was saying earlier about Maguire, Sancho, McTominay. This is where you need to say to them, this is your competition. If you play well enough, you will earn a place in the first team or whatever. And you need to use that full squad, integrate everybody back in. And then, in essence, you're saying to the players, for as long as you stay in this competition, you've got a chance of more minutes. If you go out in the third round, it's on you then that you're not playing for 3 months, because we don't need you until injuries occur. So it's putting a bit of pressure back on those players to perform.
No, I like it. It's a good idea and some good points there. Speak about City in the league. I mean, they are unstoppable. Not even VAR can stop them at the moment.
No.
What was
certainly much
I can't wait to stay on that, I'll tell you.
That made no difference to the result of the game. You know,
no, I mean, what a moment. I mean,
they should have, it was offside, etc., etc., etc. And it wouldn't have made any difference to City. Let's be honest. So.
I just wanted to get that dig in, really, if I'm honest with you. And
I've
done it now.
Wasn't even the worst decision, by the way.
No,
probably wasn't.
The red card that Diaz should have got was worse, because Wilson is in and he just drags it. Stu would have done it. Just drags him down by the neck. Sort of looks at the referee and says, "I didn't do anything." Gets away with it. It was ridiculous.
Very good. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. That'll take a while. Which leaves us really your final points as we go around, which is to do with the Champions League draw. Big games, definitely within there. Obviously, we were in pot 2. We managed to pick out Copenhagen, which I think we'd all agree would probably be the tie we'd most be thinking we're going to get the 6 points out of if there were such a thing. Galatasaray. Crikey, I mean, that brings back some horrible memories, these sort of trips that we've had to have to Galatasaray. So that was going to be huge. And of course, who can forget 99, Bayern Munich, which is another big one there. Marcus, when you saw the draw, how are you feeling about the Champions League and our chances of getting out of that group?
I mean, it's not ideal getting Bayern Munich, but at the same time, there's a school of thought in the Manchester United fan base that you should want to play against the best teams, and I'm inclined to agree with that. And I think regardless of Bayern Munich, the Bayern Munich game, both home and away, we should make it out of this group comfortably, because the other 2 fixtures are very winnable. So I'm excited, and honestly, I'm really happy to see Manchester United back in the Champions League. You know, the celebration police will tell you that you shouldn't be happy because you're lowering your standards. What's the point of being in the tournament if we can't win it? Blah, blah, blah. Listen, if it's a crime to be happy, then put me in prison, because I'm happy that we're back in the Champions League. You know,
in some places it is, like Twitter.
Yeah.
Dan, where would you go with it, mate? What was your thoughts? Because I mean, I looked at that and I just thought of all the teams to get, Galatasaray was, for me, the tricky one, because that's kind of like the on the fence one, isn't it? Anything could happen against Bayern. We could go out and have an absolute belter and get the points in that one. We could equally go out there and Bayern do the opposite. Harry Kane, there's that story, you know, should United have bought Harry Kane? Is he going to come back and do that? Or are we going to, between us and Galatasaray, ensure that Harry Kane gets no trophy in Europe due to being out in the group stages? What say you, Mr. Field?
I definitely think Harry Kane may come back to haunt us in some way, shape, or form. For me, it's really simple. You win your home games, and then you get a result away, and you're through. And that's what I'll be looking for, even against Bayern Munich. If you can make Old Trafford a fortress in the Champions League, you win your 3 home games, and then you've got your away game against Copenhagen. That's enough to qualify you with 12 points. So we just need to make sure Old Trafford's a fortress, and then try and nick something away. I think 10 points normally gets qualification. So if you can get 3 home wins and then sneak something away,
That
you're
was
fine.
always his mantra, wasn't it? 10 points.
It was, yeah, 10 points. Get to 10 points, see where you're at in the group. And I think it should be the same. There's no reason why we aren't good enough to get out of that group looking at it on paper. Football's not played on paper, unfortunately. But we should definitely be qualifying from that group. If we've got any ambitions of the squad moving forward and stuff, we should definitely get out of it.
God, I miss Fergie. The more I talk about him, those days. Stu, I'll throw Jennifer's point to you here as well whilst talking about it, because you sort of mentioned we could win it. Do you see there being any danger of this happening? If we were to get knocked out of it into the Europa, do you think we'd go on to win that one? And then also just your general thoughts on the group as it is. I know you said we're going to go on and we've got a good chance of winning it. Got to get out of the group first.
I view it really simple as well. Is you've got to play 3 teams, period. That's it. Whoever they are, you've got to play them. It's an irrelevance which teams go out of the pot, whether it's Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, etc., etc., etc. It doesn't matter. You've got to play 3 teams. As a player, the gaffer gives you the match sheets for the month. You look at it and you just tick them off. Oh, I'm at Munich next week. Got to prepare for Munich. That's all you do in football. You don't look at a group and think, Jesus, Bayern, fucking Galatasaray. You don't do that.
Right, in terms of players won't necessarily think that. They know they've just got to do it. But us as fans, I look at that and I go Copenhagen, eat piece of piss. I've done it. I've never sworn on one of these before.
I just don't look at it that way.
I'm like, oh my God, Harry Kane.
No, I don't. You see, I don't. We got 3 games to play. Oh, sorry, 6 games to play. We got 3 teams. The end period. All these people say, "Oh, God, we don't want to go to Juventus." Of course, you want to go to fucking Juventus. Of course, you want to go to Bayern Munich. This is, when you look at the Champions League, you look at, and this is right the way back when it's the European Cup. You wanted to see Real Madrid versus AC Milan, Marseille versus AC Milan, Manchester United versus Real Madrid, Barcelona. You wanted to see these great games, and that's how I do it. That's how I view it. I don't mind. I know it sounds boring. It really does, but I don't mind. When even our Saturday team that I play for now, the vets teams, the gaffer gave us 5 games, 5 teams. All right, we got Holy Souls United Saturday. There you go. That's it. So I'm interested in. That's how you do it. And as a coach and as a manager,
let me rephrase the question slightly then, rather than it being the ones most interesting. Do you think? I know you said that we could potentially go on to win it. Putting them up team versus team, do you think genuinely we've got enough about us to get out of the group with those 3 teams?
Yeah, look, I think we lose at Galatasaray away. I think we draw at Bayern at home. I think we beat Copenhagen twice, and I think potentially we beat Galatasaray at home, by the way. And I think we probably draw Bayern away, but I think we'll lose at Galatasaray away. That's where I think we'll lose. Yes, I think we'll go through. I think we'll go through second. I think we'll go through behind Bayern, and but then just bring it on. To me, it just I hear it all the time, Barry. I really do. You go to the pub, Marcus will tell you when he's talking to his mates, fucking hell, we go, oh, Jesus Christ, we're going to go to Juventus. Bring it on. What can be more better as fans, as footballers, as going into somebody else's backyard, kicking the shite out of them, and then coming back with 3 points? What can be better than that? And I don't buy that you want to play the best teams. All I buy is you've got 3 teams you've got to have in your group. That's it, and that's how you should always look at it. Sorry to be boring.
You're not sorry at all, and I think I suppose the difference I was coming out with that is that obviously we've just been in the Europa League, where some of the earlier games in that, it's just like, we're playing Ghent, and you're like, who? I've got to literally go on to Football Manager and try and do a bit of research on some of those. You've not got a clue who these people are. So you're quite right. To put out Bayern Munich, Copenhagen, and Galatasaray, and to know that I could put out a map and point to every single one of those without any major dramas.
Look, I was there in the 90s, and it was welcome to hell. I mean, it was on Turkey. I didn't go to the game, but at Turkey, it was horrible. We were vilified as fans. It was terrible, and those are the types of atmospheres that you want. Those are gone. They're all dead. Stuff like that is dead because of the way that football is at the moment, and this modernism thing, the way that football is. And sometimes you've just got to blinky yourself to it. It's a game of football, and we've got to go and we've got to win that game of football. And it will be really hard to go. It's probably easier to go to the Allianz Arena than it will be to go to Galatasaray. Look at what Galatasaray have done this year. They bought in Ziyech, they bought in Wilfried Zaha, they bought in another couple of good players. They've got a very, very good squad, Galatasaray have, and they're going to be difficult to beat on their own turf, but I expect us to beat Copenhagen. I mean, Højlund's younger brother could come back and haunt him. Who knows? Twin brothers, I think. Do they both play for Copenhagen? Or I know one of them does, doesn't he?
I'm not sure, but I actually think his twin brother might play for. No, I don't think actually Højlund played for Copenhagen, but I'm not sure. Actually.
Oh, I thought one of the brothers played for Copenhagen. One of them plays.
I think one of his brothers does.
Yeah, they do. I thought they did. And he could come up and say, "Oh, Rasmus, this is how you stick it away, pal." So yeah, he could do that. That's the beauty of football. That's why I love football, and that's why I look more excited about who we have rather than what it means. And as long as we get through, so it's one.
That family situation reminds me of when we had Saint Etienne in the Europa League, I think it was, and Pogba's brother played against us and haunted us.
What about last year or the year before? We went to Young Boys in the Switzerland. Were they Switzerland? Young Boys, Sweden, Switzerland.
I think they are. Let me check.
Anyway, we were there. Didn't we lose 2-1?
We did.
We lost away. We'd have beaten Young Boys all day long. We would have thought. All of us would have thought. It just two brothers. He's right. I thought I was right. Two brothers play for Coke. I thought that was. Cheers, Dave. Thanks, mate. And and they're a couple of years younger. So but a lot. I think what it is, and I'll tell you what it is, Barry, is they have this razzmatazz for the fucking draw, don't they? All the ex-players through the footballs, and they're in Manchester United against Bayern. Get a velvet bag of fucking balls in and get number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4.
It's the last one. It's never going to happen again because of the way they've changed it. For next year, it'll just be a bunch of teams.
It's going to be critical, actually, for us to go far in the competition based on next year as well, isn't it? I think.
I know we've got to wrap it up soon, but one more thing actually about the draw. I'm just happy we didn't get a Spanish team. I hear what Stu's saying, but I'm just happy we didn't get a Spanish team.
Each to their own. I've got no problem. Yeah. Each to their own. I really, but that's how I look at it. That's how I view it. You say each to their own.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with people loving it and crikey, because it generates information. But as players, you've got to be tunnel vision and think you can go out and win. You have to. And that's why, if I'm looking at it, it's just 3 teams.
Absolutely. Well, listen, guys, we've had an absolute banger as ever. I really hope that everybody who's been here has enjoyed it. I'm still a little bit worried about Jem, bless her. A bit earlier on, she pointed out here Anthony still to prove his worth without can be explosive, which was good. But then on the other Anthony, she said Martial's had long enough, he should be gone. So that's Anana who's on the naughty step. Martial's not looking too good for her.
Wielding the
axe. To finish it off, what did she say here? She put, there it is. The others see Man United in the group and see 6 points. Put the brandy down, Jem. Put it down, step away. It'll all look fine in the morning, I promise you.
That's a good way of looking at it, though. It's a good way of looking at it.
Bless her. But no, good stuff. So thank you everyone again for being in the comments. It's been absolute delight. Marcus, thank you so much for joining us again, mate. Really good to have you back in the squad. So thank you for joining us, Stu. excellent as ever. Good captain's performance there. And Dan, as ever, superb to have you here in the dugout with me. Just trying to get these people to chat sense, which I think they've done rather well today. Big game tomorrow. Arsenal, absolutely huge. Wherever you're watching it, enjoy it. Hope we come back from that with those 3 points because, like Stu would say, let's be honest, it's just another football team against another football team. And what could be better than going into the Lions' Den and taking the points away? Go on, the Reds!